Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the Copper and Woodchip Mountain Railroad. If you're watching last week, you will have seen me get all the rock carving done on most of the railroad. That is everything except the drop flap. I mentioned before that I wanted to leave that area until I was ready to do the bridge. Well, that time has now come, and the bridge will be the subject of this week's installment. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get it done. Yesterday I finished carving all the rocks on the rigid portions of the railroad. Today I want to work on the drop flap. The first task there is to get the bridge installed. Well, that's the first main task anyway. I can break that down into lots of little bits and pieces. Before I can install the bridge, I have to cut out a section of the existing roadbed. Before I can do that, I've got to remove the track on top of it. I did take the precaution of not gluing it down, but I do need to unsolder the rail ends where they go across the gap. This last tie here is a copper one. I need to unsolder that to remove the track, and then also disconnect the two feeders at the bottom. At the other end, it's just rail joiners, so those will slide out. So already I need to return into the house, get my soldering kit before I can continue. I have now removed the track, and I've also marked on the sub-road bed where I've got to cut to make a gap for the bridge. But before I cut it out, I'm going to replace this one temporary support with two, one either side, one there and one there. Well, that is the two supports installed. Note that I've put them a little way behind the lines, about 1/4 of an inch at both sides. Well, actually this one is a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch, but it doesn't matter. The main thing is that I want to give myself tolerance. I don't want to risk them being in the way when I cut. I've now run my skill saw through the sub-road bed at both ends. Note how I've gone about 1/8 of an inch back behind the line at both ends. And also note how I didn't finish either cut. There's a little bit holding it at both ends. The reason for that is that the moment I finish the cut, it is likely to cause the blade to bind, and that could cause a nasty kick, which I don't want. So I'm just going to break that away now, and then I will finish it up with another saw. Well, that is the gap cleaned up at both ends. The next thing I need to do is work out exactly how high the abutments need to be. And as I know that both the track and the plywood below it is level, I only got to get one right, and I know the other one will be exactly the same. Here is my material for the bridge abutments. A few weeks ago I bought some 1/4 inch square basswood, which of course equates to 12 inches in O scale. I'm going to stack up pieces of that to make the abutments. Well, that is 8 strips of wood, which is about what I thought it was going to be. But that equates approximately to the 2-inch block that I had previously. I didn't want to just use those and assume it was the same, just in case the strip wood that I bought wasn't exactly 1/4 of an inch. Anyway, looking at where the ties are on the bridge relative to the foam on either side of it, I think I'm going to have to shim that up slightly, but not enough to be worth putting another plank of wood in there. So I'm going to go ahead with abutments that are 8 sticks high. At the moment I haven't measured anything, I've just cut a variety of lengths. You may notice that I cut them at a 30-degree angle at the end, and then the intention is to stack them so that they are not quite in alignment. About like that. And I think that'll give a much more interesting abutment than if I cut them all accurately. So the next thing I've got to do is figure out exactly how wide I need it at the top, and then the bottom will be whatever width it ends up at. I want to stain everything before I glue it together, just in case I get glue squeeze out, which might mess up the colouring. But also I want to cut them to length before I stain them, so I don't have to go back and touch up the ends later. Well, that is all the pieces cut. I've got 8 angled pieces getting longer towards the bottom and 4 posts on each side. Initially I was going to do it with single posts, and then I decided that doubles look better. Next thing I'm going to do is get all those pieces stained, and then I will come back and glue them together. Well, that didn't take very long. It took longer to get the materials together than it did to do the staining. I'm just using cheap Walmart apple barrel paint. The colour is called Burnt Umber, and I dilute it in water. I don't know what the ratio is. It's probably somewhere in the region of 10 to 1, 12 to 1, something like that. As I say, I'm staining it, not painting it. The idea being that it will soak in differentially on different pieces, resulting in everything being a slightly different colour. It's not going to match the stain on the existing bridge. The client and I already discussed that, and we decided that there could be any number of reasons why the colour might be different. The one I think sounds most reasonable is that with the abutments being in the wet dirt all the time, they get more frequent creosote treatments. Well, I've now given the stain plenty of time to dry. Next thing I'm going to do is assemble them. I'm going to glue everything together on a scrap of plastic bag so that I don't glue it to the benchwork. It shouldn't take very long. Let me get on with that and I'll be right back. Well, that is both abutments assembled and weighted. All I can sensibly do now is leave the workshop and wait for the glue to set. I'll come back out either later on today or sometime over the weekend. Well, it's Saturday morning and I left the glue to dry overnight on the abutments. Here they are with the bridge just resting on top of them. I haven't positioned them accurately yet. Next thing I've got to do is cut the ties off the track as it goes over the bridge. It won't lie down flat at the moment because of the wires, but I'm going to reinstall the same piece of track just with the ties cut out in the middle because there are already bridge ties attached to the bridge. I can't do it with the camera in my hand, so let me put that down, get to work, and I'll show you the result. Well, here it is again with all the ties removed from the track in the middle. I've weighted it down so that it's exactly the right height. I did notice yesterday when I stained the bridge abutments, the wood swelled up slightly, but I wasn't aware quite how much it had swelled up. I mentioned that 8 planks wasn't quite high enough and that I would have to shim up the bottom. I wasn't worried about it because I knew there was going to be some dirt in there for the riverbed. But they swelled up to the point where I've now got to sand the bottom off because they are too high by about 1/16 of an inch. So the next step will be sanding them down to exactly the right height. Well, I didn't sand the bottoms of the abutments off. Instead I used the table saw. I felt that would be a lot easier, quicker, and give me a bottom edge that was perfectly straight instead of nearly straight. Anyway, I am happy with the fit now. I've also cut away the excess sub-road bed from both sides of the bridge, and I've set the head walls to glue up. While the glue is setting on those, I am going to take the opportunity to glue the track to the bridge. I'm not going to glue it to the foam roadbed either side. I'm just going to attach it permanently to the bridge, making sure that I've got the gauge right. Well, that is the track permanently glued down to the bridge. All I can sensibly do now is leave the workshop and let the glue do its job. Last time I came out here this afternoon, I got the head walls glued in place. I left them clamped for a bit. I've now just reinstalled the bridge. It's not actually glued in place yet, it's just resting. I haven't glued the abutments to the base yet. Before I do that, I want to get confirmation from the client that he likes the way it turned out, because it'd be a lot easier to modify it before I attach them than afterwards. So I'm just going to send him a couple of pictures and see what he says. Well, I came out here briefly on Sunday and got the bridge abutments glued in. The bridge itself is not glued there, it's just resting on top of the abutments just to make sure I got them in the right places and providing a good deck to put the weights on. It's actually fairly late on Monday already. I wanted to get out here this morning for a short time before I went out, but time caught up with me and things have just got away from me all day. Even though I haven't done anything on this particular project, the day has been reasonably productive in other ways, so that's okay. One of the nice things about running a business is that my days are varied. I'm not planning on spending a lot of time out here this evening, but I do want to get all the foam stacked up around the river. I want to let that start drying overnight, and hopefully it'll be set enough to be able to carve it tomorrow. Well, that's all for this week's video. Hope you enjoyed the show, found it useful or interesting, or both, and I hope to see you back next week, where I will start working on the scenery around the bridge and get the rocks painted. Promises to be a lot of fun, and I hope to see you back here for that. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and bye for now.